On the day I buried my mother, my husband threw my belongings onto our lawn like trash. I'm Dorothy Mae Johnson, 68 years old. I stood there in my funeral dress watching my clothes trampled into the grass, and I said, okay, then I walked away to the house he didn't know I owned. But let me start from the beginning because this story spans 42 years, 8 months of careful planning, and one afternoon that changed everything. My name is Dorothy Mae Johnson, and for most of my life, I've been invisible. The kind of invisible that happens to Black women who marry doctors, who give up nursing careers to raise children, who smile at country club events while their mother-in-law whispers that they'll never quite fit in. Richard Coleman thought I was invisible too. That was his first mistake. 42 years ago in 1982, I met Richard at Memorial Hospital, where I worked as a surgical nurse. I was 26, saving for graduate school. Richard was 28, a third-year resident with perfect ambition and a perfect smile. He asked me out, took me to a small Italian restaurant, and spoke about his dreams. He asked about my dreams too and actually listened when I talked about becoming a nurse practitioner. His family was another story. Barbara Coleman, Richard's mother, looked me up and down the first time we met and said, "Oh, you're darker than I expected." Richard laughed it off. I should have run. The wedding was small. My mother, Rosa May, pulled me aside before I walked down the aisle. "Baby girl, you sure about this? That woman looks at you like you're stealing something from her." I didn't have an answer. I walked down the aisle anyway. The first 5 years weren't terrible. I got pregnant with Michael, then Jennifer 2 years later. Richard convinced me to stop working because it didn't look right for the wife of Dr. Richard Coleman to work night shifts. I quit nursing. I became the perfect doctor's wife. I joined the hospital auxiliary, planned fundraisers, and smiled at Barbara's friends. I lost myself so gradually I didn't notice it happening. By our 10th anniversary, I had no career. By our 20th, I had no friends. By our 30th, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. The thing about being invisible, though, is that invisible people see everything. 8 years ago, when I was 60, everything changed. I saw a text message on Richard's phone from a woman named Angela that said, "Last night was amazing." I called my old friend Keisha, who said she'd been waiting 20 years for me to see what everyone else had been seeing. She told me to document everything, open my own bank account, and start building a safety net. I became a student again, but this time I was learning how to save myself. I hid cash in a tampon box under the bathroom sink. Richard never looked there. I sold things online from the public library. Then I met Evelyn Washington, a 75-year-old neighbor who taught me everything about hiding money, building credit in my own name, and documenting assets. She loaned me books about financial planning and divorce law. We met twice a week at her house when Richard was at work. I opened a secret bank account using my mother's address in Alabama. I started taking online courses in bookkeeping and got a certificate. I did books for small businesses for cash, $800 to $1,200 a month. That was mine. By the time I was 64, I had $28,000 in my secret account and a growing file of evidence about Richard's hidden assets. Evelyn helped me buy a small house in Lakewood, 30 minutes away. I created an LLC using my mother's maiden name and bought the house on December 15, 2020. I was 64 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I owned something that was mine alone. I told Richard the first joined a book club, but instead I drove to Lakewood, cleaned, painted, and made the house a home. I hired a private investigator who discovered Richard wasn't just hiding assets. He was committing Medicare fraud. Over $3 million in fraudulent billing over 15 years. I hired a lawyer named Patricia Hayes who reviewed everything and said, "You've built an airtight case, but we wait for Richard to file first because men like him always do." I waited. The call came on a Tuesday in April. My mother was dying. I drove to Alabama and spent 2 weeks with her. She told me about her own escape fund, $45,000 she'd saved over 50 years. "Every woman needs an escape fund," she said. She made me promise not to die, having only lived half a life. She died 3 days later with me holding her hand as the sun rose. I flew home a day early without telling Richard. The taxi dropped me at 3 in the afternoon, and my belongings were scattered across the lawn like garbage. Clothes, books, photos, my grandmother's quilt. Richard walked out with Angela Carter wearing my bathrobe. Behind them, Barbara stood smiling. "Richard said he filed for divorce 3 days ago," and I had 1 hour to take what I could carry. I stood there in my funeral dress looking at my life scattered like trash, and something in me shifted. Not broke, shifted like a lock turning, a door opening. I smiled and said, "I'll take my belongings now." I packed my important documents, my nursing license, my mother's Bible, and the quilt my grandmother had made. Then I called an Uber. The Uber driver was a young nursing student named Jasmine. During the 30-mile drive to Lakewood, I told her I used to be a nurse. She asked why I stopped, and I said, I let someone convince me I wasn't needed. Took me 42 years to realize I was wrong. I stood in my little craftsman house with the garden blooming and the porch swept and let it wash over me. The silence, the peace, the absolute freedom of being in a space that was entirely my own. The next morning, my lawyer filed an emergency motion to freeze all assets. Richard had disclosed $2.1 million in his divorce filing, but we had documented $20.4 million in marital assets. The judge issued an immediate freeze and awarded me temporary spousal support. Word spread through Glen Haven like wildfire. The FBI opened an investigation into the Medicare fraud. Richard's attorney was disbarred for helping forge a postnuptial agreement. Barbara faced federal charges. The divorce was finalized with me receiving 60% of the marital assets, $13.4 million, plus the house. I started the Rosa May Foundation to help women escape financial abuse. We've helped over 300 women build escape plans and find their independence. My daughter Jennifer left her own controlling marriage. My son Michael designed the foundation's new offices. Richard was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Barbara got 3 years house arrest and died 2 years later. On her deathbed, she apologized and said I was everything she wasn't, strong and independent. I'm 71 years old now. I sit on my porch in Lakewood with my garden in full bloom. People ask if I regret the 42 years I lost. I tell them I don't think of them as lost. I think of them as the foundation I was building even when I didn't know it. Every year of being dismissed taught me to see the dismissed. Every moment of invisibility taught me to value the invisible. At 68, I learned that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. A golden cage is still a cage, and no amount of gilding makes it worth staying locked inside. The door was always unlocked. I just had to be brave enough to open it.